All right, everybody got that?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter tonight. Matt Wuerker graduated from Lewis and Clark in 1979 with a degree in international affairs. He is the staff cartoonist at Politico and was part of the team that actually started Politico back in 2006. He was the winner of the 2012 Pulitzer Prize for editorial cartooning and has published 2 collections of cartoons and was an active cartoonist while he attended Lewis and Clark for the Pioneer Log. So now to help us create our very own doodles, it's my pleasure to present Matt Wuerker.
Hi, everybody. This is so wonderful and so strange. I'm like talking to all of you as I stare at the little green light on my computer. Hello in there. Hello, as John Prine would say. So everybody has, I hope everybody has some paper and their chosen drawing implement, like pencil, or it can be anything, a felt pen or whatever. And then also a beverage, perhaps. Since it's a happy hour. I wish I had a Bohemia or a Blitz or something, but this is DC Brow. I'm supporting local guys. Okay, so tonight's really just about having some fun drawing and getting to see all your faces and stuff. So just a little bit about sort of my philosophy with these workshops. Politico has had me doing a few of these as we've been quarantined. So I've had a little bit of practice. But so those of you that may not remember, this is what my stuff looks like for Politico. Here's a pen and ink drawing. You do not have to draw this like detailed or whatever. But what I end up doing for Politico looks like this, like that. I'm really busy. My last name really should be Wuerker. This is the one that showed up on in Politico today. So that was today's little cartoon effort. I don't know what's going to happen to me when I die. I'm going to come back as a slug because I'm having way too much fun in this life, but I'm going to stick with it. Here's another example of one I did this week. I don't know if you can see that. These are the face masks that everyone's now told to wear at the White House. So, but this isn't about me. And so the idea here is to have some fun and make you all draw and make you realize that drawing is really, really easy. And, you know, as we're sitting here in quarantine and left to our own devices, you know, it's a great opportunity to really like doodle a lot. And maybe you'll get in touch with the inner cartoonist within you, and this can inspire you to do a graphic novel or the New Yorker cartoons that you always wanted to draw or something like that. So the step 1 is loosen your wing nut. Just relax. There's no right or wrong answer. The whole idea here is to just mess around. And if you don't like what you are drawing, then you can just, it's this wonderful thing called paper. You can crumple it up and throw it away and start over. So we will get to some drawing now. Let me get you here. I have I was gonna wear an apron so I could do the full Bob Ross thing, but I forgot my apron. Okay, is everybody ready to do a little bit of drawing? Okay. The amazing thing with cartooning is that it doesn't take much for people to recognize what you're drawing. So here we go. We're gonna start with a super simple form. We're gonna just start with a circle on your piece of paper. Now stay with me. So I'm not going to draw in my style. With the first few of these, I want to draw in styles that just sort of show you some of the simple concepts of cartooning. So that can be an eye, and then I could easily add a couple of lines and see what I magically done. We now have a simple profile of a face. People's faces are like this simple thing that for some reason our brains want to arrange lines and recognize the lines. So this would be your basic Saul Steinberg kind of person. Stay with me. Am I going too fast? Okay, so we now have a tie And it doesn't take much. It just takes a few simple lines. Now, one of the other basic building blocks of cartooning is the magic of overlapping shapes. So I have like the gentleman's coat coming along here, and it's going to run into the gentleman's hand. And so that goes now behind, and your brain is organizing these shapes so that you can now decipher what's in the foreground, one leg and one foot. I wish I could see what you're drawing, but maybe at the end. And now we're going to add the other leg in the back. And then again, we're going to, the overlapping shapes. We have another arm in the back. So this arm is magically in front of his chest, and that arm is now magically behind his chest. And then we're going to add a hand, and then a simple hat, just a line. And now you have a simple man standing. We can add, this is called a cartoon drop shadow. Everybody's muted. I can't hear anybody talking back to me, so I'm assuming this is, you're staying with me.
It looks good.
There you go. So now we've got your basic Saul Steinberg man, and now you could all draw for the New Yorker. Okay, marching ahead.
Okay, that's too fast.
That was too fast? Oh, you guys. You're Lewis and Clark graduates.
That was fast.
Yeah, but we're drinking.
You're drinking. Okay, wait. Do you need to hold this up again? Okay, you got it? Okay, see, it's Saul Steinberg this is pretty straightforward. Okay, now, another school of cartooning is a little more tight. And again, it's this business of organizing shapes. So we're going to start with a circle. Now, we're going to add one little line like this. There's a nose. And now we're going to add another circle like that. And now we're going to turn those two circles into eyes. Too fast?
Good so far.
Okay, and then we're going to find a mouth. And a lip. And then right over here past the mouth, we're going to find an ear. There's a lot of different ways to draw ears. And then we're going to bring a neck down and a neck. Anybody recognizing this this particular cartoon style yet?
Art Simpson.
Yes. Okay. And since Lisa's on the call, we have to do this.
He's a Portland native.
And was on the Pioneer Log.
That's right.
Lisa was a classmate at Lewis and Clark and is on the call.
Mhm.
Lisa, it's like a nightmare for you. This happened, or no? This is okay, right?
We're good.
Okay, then we're going to give Lisa her hand. And for some reason, there's a thing in cartooning where hands have 3 fingers. I don't know why Disney started that. That's a thumb. Another arm, and the rest of Lisa. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm forgetting. Too fast? Not too fast. Okay, so now you've been introduced to the Steinberg School, and here's the Groening School. And they're similar, but they're also different. This is much more sort of a controlled kind of line. And neither of those may be your cup of tea, so we'll try another school. Everybody finish their Lisas? Okay, another school. This is one that this is getting more into sort of the way I draw, and this would have started probably in Bob Mandel's IA classes, or maybe Crampton's classes, or I was trying to think. I drew a lot through French, my poor French teacher. So we're going to start with a slightly different kind of eye. So make a couple of marks just sort of like that. And this is kind of the way, if you look at like old photographs, we're going to add like eyeballs and a little bit more shadow. And then an eyebrow. Should I bring this closer? Can you see that well enough? You can see well enough. Okay, now we're going to come down and find a nose. And again, this is, if you look at old black and white photographs of people's faces, the sun's shining down, and a lot of what you're seeing is really just the shadows that are cast by, you know, your eyebrows and your lips and your nose and stuff like that. And so you can now add a mouth, a little smile line. And then a little lower lip. And then there's a million ways. I could do like a square face here and it would work, but I'm going to make it round. Okay, now we're gonna, we're 10 minutes into it, and it's time that you face the crosshatch. Okay, so when I'm drawing this sort of thing, the lines are describing the outline of things, but crosshatching is actually shading. And so you want to do it lightly. You don't want to do it a heavy line. You want to add like just some little light lines around, say like here, maybe down the side of the nose. This is particularly easy if you've got a ballpoint pen. And see, we're beginning to, as they would say in art classes, describe the shape of the form. And then one of the other nice things about cartooning is that it is not life drawing. So we can mess with people's proportions. So I'm going to put him on just a little body, little hands. It's very quiet. Everyone's concentrating very hard. Is everyone remembering to take a drink?
When we talk, we
You're
can't
on
see you.
mute.
Oh, you're on mute. Oh, good. Oh, you're being really noisy out there, and you're like not paying attention. Okay, fine. Okay, this is what happens when people have beer.
We're in awe.
Oh my God, it's so advanced. It's so. Don't try this at home. No, actually, try this at home, and you'll find out. And then again, a little bit of dark shadow. And now you can do whatever you want with the sort of remaining details. You may decide that you want to give them a striped shirt. And there's little things with the drawing that make all the difference. If you're doing the striped shirt and you remember to make them kind of curvy lines, you're describing the round shape of the person. So that works. Or we'll make a check. We can bring down some other lines like that. Or give him a bow tie. It's all completely up to you. Like that, and I think maybe wrinkles. Oh, I'm gonna give him glasses. And you could just keep going with this if you wanted to. That's beautiful. That is excellent. See, it's easy. You're all coming from my job. Okay. So now now you've learned like 3 different approaches to this thing. And now just to sort of mess with you, one of my favorite cartoonists was a guy, Richard Thompson, who worked here in Washington, DC. Richard's style is completely loose, completely crazy. So this is a demonstration that you can really loosen your wing nut and still have it work out. So let's just put down an eyeball and an eyeball. And then I'm gonna go full like Cubist Picasso. I'm gonna put a nose over here. I'm gonna put a mouth over here. And then I'm gonna fill in the eye. And now once you get those started, you can just stay super loose and do a little bit of combination of everything we were doing. Little shadows, maybe over his eyes. Get a little scribbly. A little cross hatching on the nose. Add an ear, give him some teeth. I'm gonna give him a little beard, I don't know why. I don't know what I'm gonna do with his hair, let's see. Just let the pen find its own way. Just get kind of loose. His neck goes like that. See, it doesn't, you don't have to be uptight. It's not like really tight forms. And your thing could be something entirely different. It could be a big, fat, round face. I went sort of long here. Maybe I'll add a mustache. And a tie. He certainly resembles somebody. I'm not sure who, but just stay loose. Keep the wing nut loose. Okay, any questions so far, class? None? Oh, you're all muted. I forget. I'm sorry.
I have a question. Am I getting through? This is Sullivan. Matt, this form we're doing right now, this creator or style is who?
His name was Richard Thompson.
Okay.
If you Google Richard Thompson, Richard's Poor Almanac, he drew for the Washington Post.
Got it.
He's got the greatest cartoon style ever. He's my personal favorite. Unfortunately, Richard died a few years ago. But
And the one before that, well, last question from me right now. Who was the style before that?
that would be a vintage Wuerker, circa 1979, I think.
Okay,
that would
that's the name of the artist style?
That would be sort of my style. That's
Very good.
Yeah.
The Matt.
We'll do one. We'll do another one here of the president. That's much more my current style.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so now that you're all warmed up, we can get to more advanced stuff like caricature. I personally am on a mission, as horrible as it is to people who are real fans of Maurice Sendak, but I personally think that Donald Trump is the wild thing. And I've been trying to make this stick for 3 years and it hasn't stuck, but maybe you guys can help me here. So, fresh piece of paper. So this is Donald Trump 101, but mixed in with a fair amount of Maurice Sendak. Okay, everybody close their eyes and try, envision Donald Trump. What's the first physical feature that jumps out to you as a cartoonist? The hair. The hair. Okay, so we're going to start with the hair. So it's a signature shape. It's sort of, it's a little bit like, it's sort of mammalian. It looks like a ferret or something. You could give it a couple of eyes. And then now that you learned about cross-hatching, you do a few lines to indicate the shape of the hair, which is one of the great mysteries of modern American politics, how he does this. It's a lot of hairspray. And then under his hair, right about here, we're going to find a little nose. It already looks like Donald Trump, doesn't it? It's magic. And then right up here underneath his hair, we're going to find his eye. And give him one bag under his eye. Maybe we'll find another one over here. And then I'm going to make the shape of his face. And then we're going to give him the full Wild Thing mouth, which is really broad. And some Wild Thing teeth. And then a little lower lip. And then one of his chins. And then that thing about overlapping shapes. So we've got his hair here, but we're going to find a little bit of hair back here. A couple of lines on that to make it feel like hair. And then we're going to give him the Wild Thing arms. And we're going to do another one over here. Got his arms. And then we're going to give him a nice big Wild Thing belly. Maybe we'll fill in his claws. And then, oh, I need to give him a little bit more hair here. And then Wild Thing horns. And then like we did with that one cartoon character, we're going to give him a striped shirt, which Mr. Sendak was partial to.
You didn't leave room for the necktie.
No, we're skipping a necktie. I know. Well, we could add it. Okay, for you, Jack, there's a necktie. Here, we'll give him
I think you need a longer piece of paper, though.
That's right. There's not enough room at the bottom of the page.
Here, we'll give him a necktie. You want to bring the necktie all the way down to the ground. Have you noticed his neckties have changed? He's no longer going with the full red. He's been wearing some purple neckties. I don't know what that means. And then we're going to give him a couple of Wild Thing legs. And then I'm going to give him, I think the Wild Thing, my favorite Wild Thing was the one that had the scales. So just a little bit of texture here. And a shadow on the ground. Oh, I guess he needs to have claws on his feet too. And now you've learned about contour lines and cross-hatching lines, and then you can do other little things with texture that help a lot. So you could just do a few stipples. This would be called stippling. to make something look kind of hairy. And then again, Mr. Sendak is partial to the stripes, so striped horns are somehow more Wild Thing than Satan, which is probably a good idea. A few more stipples. And then if we want to get really advanced with this, we can do a little bit with the cross hatching on his face. So like the side of his nose. Maybe bring a line out here. A little cross hatching. Just little touches. You don't want to hit it too hard when you're doing the shading with the cross hatch. And the shading can achieve a couple things. It gives you sort of the shape, and then you can also, it sort of implies a certain complexion, even though we don't have orange paint. A little bit of crosshatch can indicate that he's got certain coloration. And then you can just keep going forever with that. But okay, so now you have Trump as a Wild Thing. So now you've learned the Steinberg school, the Graining school, a little bit of the Wuerker school. What more should we draw? What do people want to draw? A basic donkey or elephant? Those are sort of good building blocks.
I was going to go for, at this day and age, I think the Grim Reaper would be a good one to work on.
In a bird format, though, possibly.
Wait, a bird Grim Reaper?
Yes.
A bird Grim Reaper, okay.
No, just a suggestion, but I defer because I'm merely interrupting with that on. I'm going on mute now.
Matt, did you ever take art at Lewis and Clark?
I did. I actually, I was an IA major, and then I finished up my IA major in time where I thought I could circle back to do an art degree too. And then I ran into Phyllis Yes, and she and I had differences of opinion about whether or not art could be humorous. And she had a very low tolerance for humorous art.
Who didn't?
So I took a number of art classes, and I even did a little senior thesis thing, but then I gave up. It was a little too hard. So alas, I only have an international affairs major. Okay, a Grim Reaper is a bird. Okay, let's do the hood. So you start with sort of, a hood shape, right? And then we're going to find the bird face. Now, one of the things that's fun when you're doing drawing is that you're not just putting black on the paper, you're also making decisions about where you let the paper remain white. So especially when you're doing an eye, you can leave a highlight. So like I've created a little space here where I'm going to leave it white, and then that creates a shiny looking eye, so somewhat shiny. I don't know why he's smiling, but well, he's the Grim Reaper. And then we'll bring an arm down here. Give him a hand. And this, of course, would be the sigh. It's a short sigh, sorry. It's almost a hoe. Maybe we'll give him some bird feed just in case people don't realize he's a bird. It's the grim great blue heron.
I actually saw a heron flying tonight, and it's a a beautiful bird and iconic imagery here. But I mean, the effects are so interesting. The manner in which you make these things pop, and the doodling aspects. I think. Thank you for this treat, Matt.
Well, it really is I mean, the main thing when you're drawing cartooning is, I think it's true of a lot of art, is people get uptight. You're all worried about like making it look right, and it's a bunch of scratchy lines of ink on paper. And the other thing that I love about a lot of cartoonist work is that if you're having a fun time when you're drawing it, it shows up in the art, and it's a lot of it is just the attitude of the artist. If you're having fun, the image is going to be fun. It shows up in the line.
What is your favorite pen to draw with?
I draw with a rapidograph actually most of the time. I sometimes use old-fashioned dip pens. I'm literally a creature from the 18th century. I like these old, a lot of cartoonists now are working on computers and they have these big technical setups and stuff like that. Like this stuff that I do for Politico, this is just pen and ink on watercolor paper, and then I get the good old-fashioned watercolors out, and it's way more fun to push puddles of paint around than it is to sit there and look at it.
What's the timeline on that? Excuse me, Matt, what's the timeline on that finished product you just shared with us? What's that journey time?
This?
Yes.
This one's a fairly easy one. I've drawn Trump so many times that the caricature happens fast. This was probably a total of maybe 2 hours of work. I mean, the hardest thing with the political cartoons is coming up with something that's cogent and somewhat constructive, and maybe is even funny. And that's the part that takes the time. And then once you're into the drawing part, the drawing happens pretty fast. Although other ones, this one was probably more like a total of 6 hours of work. This one I was doing today, there was more composition things to work out. And you have to be, I don't know if you can read in the top, this is Joe Biden up here.
Yeah.
And the donkey is saying, Joe, don't you need to get it back out there? And Joe's saying, good. Here's another one. This one I actually reworded. So I used the drawing, but then I changed the word bubbles. This is from earlier this week. So this is Trump padding around the White House. I mean, I got my first job doing political cartoons right out of Lewis and Clark. I started drawing for Willamette Week when Jimmy Carter was president. So I mean, I've been doing this a really long time, and it's never been this crazy and this easy. I mean, there's so much material to work with. It's just crazy.
Can you tell us, how did you get from Willamette Week to Politico? I mean, that's a 3,000-mile schlep. So, and how did you get in on the ground floor of Politico?
I had a very long, winding career path. The one through line through all of it was I really liked political cartooning, but when you're drawing them for Willamette Week and getting paid $20 a cartoon, you can't really pay the bills. So I ended up working in animation for about 10 years. I worked with Will Benton in the Claymation studio. And then after that, I worked with Jim Blatchfield, and we did like early music video stuff. And then I did muralism. I taught cartooning in prisons. I did a lot of commercial art and editorial illustration. And all along I was doing the political cartoons just as a labor of love. And then at age 50, I wandered into the offices of what was going to become Politico. And I thought they were going to be maybe a freelance client. And instead they said, hey, you want a job? Like as a staff cartoonist? Like you pay my health insurance? And they said, yeah, what the heck? And so we started in 2006 with about 40 people. And I just, you know, it's a cliche, being in the right place at the right time, but I knocked on the right door at the right time. And hurriedly I did everything I could to make myself indispensable. So I was a pathetic yes man whenever they come to me and they say, will you do caricatures of the staff? And it's like, sure, you're paying my health insurance. You know, I mean, I've been a freelancer for 25 years, and this business of getting a regular salary and suddenly finding myself drawing for the readership here in Washington, D.C. Was really exciting. And I didn't think, this is not false modesty, I really didn't think it was going to last. I just thought, there's no way they're going to put up with me. I mean, you know, this will last a year or two. This would be great. And it's now been 13 years.
And a
So
Pulitzer.
Matt, I'm curious. Would you have been at the Oregonian if not for Jack Omen, or were you not? You know, it sounds like you were very humble at the time. Did you not see yourself in that class?
I was making plenty of money doing animation, and I was reading way too much Noam Chomsky and The Nation magazine, and you know, I didn't want to work for the man. And so like Jack Omen is a good friend of mine, and we joke about this, but I was way too scruffy and way too pinko to work for the Oregonian. And, you know, my politics have gotten a little more practical as I've aged. So again, it was a very weird experience showing up at Politico and getting hired by a very mainstream, literally inside the Beltway kind of publication. But they like me. I'm like Sally Fields. They like me, so.
Hey, Jackson, you had another question. Do you want to ask him your question about perspective?
Sure, thank you. As definitely a non-artist, what I struggle with is proportionality. Like, you know, that's a great tip to start with the eye and then center everything around that. You know, and I'm picking up other tips, but like I do not intuitively see the image in my head the way that artists seem to. Is that true? Do you actually visualize it already in your head?
I do, but again, like I've been doing this for decades, so you know, I've really taught my brain to visualize things like that. But a lot of cartoonists work in different ways. I mean, there are some cartoonists who never put pencil to paper; they only work in ink, and they just sort of lay it out, and that's it. And I'm much more of the school where I'll scribble something out, and I'll like that part, but not that part, and then I'll start over, and then I'll lightbox. I mean, you know, this cartoon. Today's cartoon, this one, I probably drew this 4 or 5 different times in 3 or 4 different ways and sort of worked out stuff. And then I put it on a light box.
Are you ready? Well, then you don't have to worry about the dog. Go to bed.
Okay, so there's hope for us non-artists that we can actually train ourselves to do this.
Well, the really great thing about cartooning is that a lot of people think that you have to be an artist to be a cartoonist, and it's not the case. I'm actually way on the side of it's about the drawing, but if you look at the New Yorker, there's a lot of really wonderful New Yorker cartoons who've had long careers and they can barely draw. You know, I mean, Bob Mankoff, who was the cartoon editor at the New Yorker for years and years, he was the guy that drew with the little dots, the little stipple. I mean, and if you asked him, are you an artist? And he would laugh. He'd go, I'm a cartoonist. So, I mean, back to sort of where I was starting with this in the beginning. I mean, everybody, if you've got a creative vision, a character or a funny sense of humor, the drawing style will sort of flow naturally with that because it's coming from you, as long as you're not trying to copy somebody else and be just like somebody else. And the cool thing these days is that, I mean, back in the olden days when I started out, you needed to, in order to get recognized as a cartoonist, you had to go down to Willamette Week and talk Ron Buell, the publisher, into giving you some space in his newsprint. And these days, most cartoonists are breaking out on social media. you know, people who are doing graphic novels or making political commentary and things like that, they'll start out on social media and then they're noticed by other publications and maybe they find their way into print, but even that's not entirely necessary.
So Matt, I have some questions that I have gotten here on the chat. So Kim Johnson, do you want to ask your question? About
I can't
if
hear.
you're talking, you're on mute. Kim?
Sorry about that.
There you are.
Thanks for doing this, Matt. It's really fun. I was just curious if you get any direction from your editor at Politico about theme or content, or if you wake up in the morning and see a blank piece of paper and just watch the news or something.
This is another reason I'm going to come back as a slug in my next life. I am the envy of most of my cartoon buddies in that I have no adult supervision whatsoever.
Lucky.
My editors, I'm older than all the people at Politico, so, and I've been there from the very beginning, so they're a little intimidated by me, and they just sort of put up with me. I'm now on my third regime of managing editors, and it kind of works for them in that if, like Tom Tolles, who draws for the Washington Post, he has sort of the more traditional relationship that most cartoonists have. His editors do sit down, they want to see sketches. They'll go, no, Tom, you've done too many trunk cartoons, do that one. Usually you're on a leash, but I'm not on any, the only leash I have is I have a copy editor who checks my spelling. And the beauty for the editors at Politico is that it gives them, this is a very Washington, D.C. sort of term, but it gives them complete plausible deniability. So if I really do something that's really horrendous, they can go, oh my God, we had no idea, that's just Matt. We have no responsibility for the ink stained wretch in the corner who's been scribbling here. He just kind of came with the furniture. So.
Lisa, you had a question. Lisa Groening, did you want to ask him about that?
Yes, I was going to ask if you have ever gotten any angry reactions from anyone you've drawn in an unflattering light.
Yes, that's a fairly regular thing. You get lots of angry reactions, and you know, like Politico, we have, I think it's 4 million Twitter followers now. So when they post my cartoon on the Twitter feed, there's an immediate and overwhelming negative reaction. It's just the nature. I don't know why they call it social media. It's just generally antisocial.
That's how you know you're doing it right.
Yeah, no, I guess so. Although the other weird thing about working in Washington, D.C. is that, so Politico, we appear mostly digitally online, but we also have a print edition that's distributed on Capitol Hill for free and around the city up and down K Street. So people in this town really see the cartoons, and I fairly regularly get people responding, and it's a weird situation because, you know, I'll do a cartoon where I'm thinking I'm really made fun of like Mitch McConnell or something. And then his office will call and go, we would love the original. Or, and it fills you with mixed emotions because you sort of go, oh God, you know, I was really trying to take you down a peg and you'd like the original. So
just
that
charge a lot.
Yeah.
You know.
And actually I figured out a thing where I can't really take their money. I can't like profit from the people I'm drawing about. So I have them donate to something. And so, you know, like, you know, if it's Mitch McConnell, I'll make him donate something to Win Without War or something. I tried once, this is way back, this is before Politico, I did a cartoon that showed up in the Washington Post that was about Donald Rumsfeld. This is like in 2003. And it was the same kind of horrible mixed emotion where I got an email from some colonel in the Pentagon who said the Secretary of Defense loved the cartoon, could he have the original? And it filled me with horror. And so then I emailed the colonel back and I said, yes, you can have it, but in exchange for withdrawing the troops from Iraq. And there was silence. And then the next day I sent another email to the nice colonel and I said, just one troop and you can have the cartoon.
Great. Gail Vanderhoof, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Matt. I was just wondering how you actually can distinguish between cartooning and illustrating. So I was, while we were working on the Trump illustration, I was thinking of Ralph Steadman.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I mean, his work is kind of crazy. And is that something that you can replicate, or? I mean,
I wish. I mean, talk about a loose wingnut. I mean, I love Stedman, and as a young pup starting out, Stedman was the guy, for people that maybe don't recognize the name. He illustrated the Hunter Thompson books and did a lot of stuff for Rolling Stone back in the 70s. And he's literally an ink slinger. He splatters ink on his cartoons. He works really large, and he's definitely a cartoonist / illustrator. He's right sort of in the middle, because the main differentiation that most people think of is that a cartoonist will actually rely on a caption or a word bubble, and an illustrator would be purely graphic and not use words. And most people who work as illustrators work sort of in tandem with writers. So, you know, in the case of Stedman, the Rolling Stone would say, here's Hunter Thompson's coverage of the Watergate hearings, would you do some drawings? And so he's illustrating something that somebody has written. But that cartooning has changed so much in the course of my career. I mean, all those lines are really blurring. And there's, you know, 20 years ago, there was no such thing as a graphic novel. And now we have graphic novels that are, you know, as thick as Moby Dick, done by cartoonists. Or there's a whole area, the Pulitzer went to the New York Times a couple years ago for a piece that was, they call it comic journalism, where it's a cartoonist is really basically drawing a documentary, reporting on something, just like a reporter, but instead of using photographs or an essay, it's drawn out. And the New York Times won for one that was about a Syrian refugee family coming to the United States. And it was reportage. It was about their experience coming to the United States. And so you don't have to be as crazy as Ralph Steadman, or you don't have to necessarily have, like, you know, fire and brimstone opinions to be a cartoonist. There's such a range now of venues and styles.
Lindsay, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah. I'm just wondering what kind of other mediums or styles do you maybe break out into, and has it affected your cartooning style any?
I've worked in lots of different mediums in the course of my funny winding path. I worked with a muralist in LA and did a bunch of sort of big murals as sort of, her name was Judy Baca, and we did big murals for the '84 Olympics and stuff. And I learned a lot about painting that influences my cartooning now. And it's interesting, the styles kind of change. I mean, people's taste, the art directors who decide what they want their magazines to look like, or what kind of cartoons they want to use to populate their newspapers. And, you know, once upon a time, it was all just pure pen and ink. And now it's color, and the current trend is people working on computers and tablets. And I can do it, I've taught myself how to do it, but it doesn't have the same enjoyment. It's not fun drawing on glass. And then the other thing with the world of working in digital art, which I get in arguments with younger cartoonists all the time, is the evil undo button. So in the world of digital art, it's true of all things digital, it's so easy to go back and rework. You can go back and you can, like in Photoshop, if you're drawing or painting something, you can go back 12 steps. And it's a rabbit hole, because you can sit there and you can do all this stuff, and you do it in sepia, and you think, oh, it's all going to be brown. And then you look at it and you go, oh, no, it really should be blue. Go back 12 steps, do it all in blue. And then, no, maybe it needs to be gray. And then, so you do it 3 or 4 times. And the beauty of working with old-fashioned 17th century medium like this is, I put the paint down and I made my decision, and I can't go back. There's no undo button on a piece of paper. So I'm sticking with watercolor. I don't know if that answers your question.
Donna, do you want to ask your question? There's a question about how many cartoons.
Sure. Yeah, I was wondering how many cartoons you draw in a month, and I wonder if you keep a backlog of cartoons that you can pull from.
Um,
just in case you have a bad week at Politico and you want to pull from things.
Yeah, the dreaded writer's block or something. I do 3 cartoons a week for Politico, and then I do other drawing assignments and illustrations and things at Politico. I used to do 4 a week, and then I've talked them into letting me do 3 a week. Because, I mean, I can come up with 3 good cartoon ideas a week, but sometimes with the 4th one, it's a little weak or something. There are a lot of cartoonists that will do 5 or 6 a week, but my brain is not quite that fast or whatever.
Heidi Hu, do you want to ask your question? Unmute and ask your question.
Sorry about that. Quick question. This is a lot of fun, by the way. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Where do you find humor and irony? I mean, is it in short supply, or there's plenty of it all the time?
You know, it's a really good question. Sometimes it's hard to find humor and irony. There's no shortage of irony with Donald Trump. The 8 years of Obama were a little harder because it was a less ironic sort of stretch. One of the hard things with being a political cartoonist is not trivializing things that are actually kind of serious and sobering. And that part is that part is still the hardest part for me. I struggle with that. I do think there's a voice that a cartoonist can work in that's really all about sort of condemnation and scolding. And some cartoonists do that a lot. And I just don't think it's as effective. I think that, you know, the old thing about you can get further with honey than with vinegar or something. I think humor breaks people's barriers down a little bit. Even when you're attacking something that's pretty serious. Does that answer your question? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know where it comes from. I mean, you sort of have to study it in some ways too. I started out when I was first cartooning in high school. I drew for my high school paper, and I grew up in LA. And the guy that was drawing the cartoons for the LA Times was this giant, Paul Conrad. He won 3 Pulitzer Prizes. His proudest accomplishment was he made Nixon's enemies list. But Paul was a mentor of mine starting early on, and he was a fire and brimstone guy. I mean, 75% of Paul's cartoons aren't funny. He was just running around sort of calling people assholes who should have been called assholes. And I started out sort of doing that kind of style, and then I began to sort of see other stuff by people like Pat Oliphant. Stedman was another big influence, but people who brought more humor to it. And it's more appealing. It's a more pleasant place to spend your time than this sort of, you know, everything's going to hell in a handbasket sort of approach, which a lot of political cartoonists sort of trade in.
Thank you.
Sure.
Stephen Leboudier, do you want to ask your question?
Hi.
Unmute and ask your question.
Oh gosh. Well, I guess first of all, hope you are well and hope Owen is doing well. And thank you for this wonderful tutorial. I was just curious, Trump loves attention and he thrives on press coverage. And I wonder if that even ever factors into your decision around what cartoon you will do or anything. I'm curious if that plays a role.
You mean his sort of raving narcissism and making whether or not drawing him is like playing into it or something?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, there's definitely that. And I mean, I'll admit I'm sort of sick of drawing about Donald Trump. I mean, and part of it is that, part of it is not wanting to feed the beast or feed the ego of the beast or something. But there's just, I mean, we've been doing this now for 4 years, and there's only so many ways you can say this guy is dangerously crazy. So I'm running out of ways to say that. So there's certainly a Trump fatigue. If he gets reelected, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think that half the cartoonists in the country will jump out of windows just because it's exhausting. But I have to say at the same time, it's exhausting, but it's also, I worry that cartoonists are becoming really lazy because the cartoons, there's so much low-hanging fruit. You wake up in the morning and you don't have to sort of think about some heavy policy debate. Because Donald Trump has done some dumbass thing or tweeted something in the morning that's just crazy. And so I worry that the cartoonists are becoming, like the bears that live near campgrounds that learn to eat out of garbage cans. The cartoonists for the last 4 years were like those bears. And then when the garbage cans go away and we have to actually go out and hunt for ourselves again, I think that we've lost our ability to do that. So it may be it may be the end of cartooning. This is part of Trump's evil strategy.
Well, I remember Jon Stewart thinking that he had it easy during the Bush years. So
yeah,
he had no idea what was coming. But I again appreciate you taking us down this road of a little bit of cartooning and lightening the mood around this place. So thank you, Matt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully everybody can do a little bit of sort of art therapy with what we've done tonight. And seriously, I mean, a lot of people had this strange fear of drawing. I mean, or they limit their doodles to the endless stars or something, or rainbow shapes or something. Be brave. You can do a bird as a Grim Reaper. It's easy. And if it doesn't work, you can always throw it out.
I have a few more people. Looks like we just have time for just a couple more questions. Jennifer Moore, do you want to unmute?
Hi, this is, hi Matt, this is
Hi,
Jenny Bradford. I worked on the garden with you, the people garden in front of the administration building.
That was my senior art thesis that Phyllis
Yes.
I thought it was funny and Phyllis didn't consider it art. So.
Well, I had problems with her too. But that was actually Nelson sitting next to me who asked the question about Walt Kelly.
Oh, well, wait, what was the question about Walt Kelly?
Just your comments. You were talking about political cartoonists that you admired and that had this and that influence. And to me, I grew up with Walt Kelly and Pogo, and I just wondered, how that factors into your concepts.
I love Pogo stuff, and Walt Kelly is an example of. I mean, that's a real cartoonist. I mean, what I do as a political cartoonist is I just take the news and I turn it into a cartoon. He created that whole world with all the characters and the animals. And then he also managed to twist that and make political commentary. I mean, an absolute genius, I was actually, he did that famous Pogo poster, "We have met the enemy and he is us."
Right.
And I was trying to think about a way to apply that to the life in the pandemic. I don't know about you guys, but you walk out on the street and I now have this like fear of other human beings, where you do this thing where we're all walking around each other and making sure that people have masks and,
Yeah.
Anyway, he was definitely an influence when I was a kid.
All right.
Is that a loom, Jenny, in your background I saw? You're weaving.
Yes, I'm a weaver. That's what I've been doing ever since Lewis and Clark.
I remember, and you haven't stopped. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. This is it's so great to see everybody. I mean, I woke up this morning so looking forward to this and thinking about like the good old days at Lewis and Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too many good news to even start down.
Julia, do you want to ask a question? I'm just going to do 2 more questions after Julia, and then we'll call it a night. Julia still on the call? Unmute.
Asking a question.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go to Jean Robertson, and then we'll circle back and see if Julia, maybe she had to go. Jean Robertson?
Hi there, this is Jean. Hi, Matt. It's just been amazing. I'm so grateful to you for doing this. It's really been fun.
No, it's fun. We should do it every night.
We should, for sure. Cheers to you, baby. I am really struggling not to be in despair every minute. And you live in Washington, D.C., and you think about politics all the time. How do you keep your chin up? I'll mute now, and you can help us.
Oh, God. Oh, man. This is when I'm supposed to give an inspirational speech. It's really weird. I moved here 20 years ago, so I've been in Washington since 2000. My now ex-wife and I moved here with our son in 2000, just in time to see Clinton leave office and Bush come in. So it was a very weird thing. And moving from Portland, Oregon, I was all sort of dazzled by Washington and, you know, the monuments and going and hanging out in the Senate and getting to see senators, and you go to restaurants and there's Janet Reno having dinner, and for a, you know, a political groupie, it was all sort of super exciting. And I think Washington does change people, and it's changed my politics a little bit in that you meet people here, and it is a swamp, and there are a lot of like really bad people doing really, really bad things. But in this swamp, there are also a lot of really good people doing really good and brave things. And generally, I'm optimistic. You know, the long arc of history bends towards justice or whatever. It does. And in our lifetimes, the progress that's been made in a lot of fronts, from, you know, civil rights to gay rights to even environmentalism. I know at this moment it's hard to believe all that stuff, but if you stand back and you sort of look at the big picture, the arc is bending in the right direction. And there are lots of good, smart people here trying to stop the stupid, evil people here. So, I mean, I'm an optimistic realist, I think. And I also, the other bit of optimism I'll throw out there is, in the 20 years I've been here, the pendulum swings radically. So I think that if we cast our minds back to 2008, I think that one of the critical political things that made it possible for us to elect Barack Obama, the first Black president of the United States, was things were really, really bad at the end of the Bush-Cheney years. I mean, we were in a horrible recession. The economy was collapsing. We were in the midst of a horrible, needless war. And the pendulum swung hard, and we got Obama. And Obama has plenty of flaws or whatever. So I'm just hoping that that if Bush-Cheney got us Obama, then maybe Donald Trump, the pendulum's going to swing even harder. So who knows, you know? So I'm optimistic.
Great. I'm going to say this is the last question. Mary Kay Perry, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, thanks so much for the evening. This has been so much fun. What we were wondering is, you said you have quite a bit of latitude in doing your drawings, but do sometimes your editors want to have you do a certain thing, maybe on short notice sometimes?
The only time they do that to me is when they want like an illustration or something, and that happens fairly regularly. The editorial cartoon is sort of a separate category, and that's my baby. And they leave me completely alone on that. So if I upset people or I do something that causes a big backlash, they can dismiss it as that's something I have to own. I did a cartoon back when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston. It was a little bit too early, and it got misconstrued by the right-wing media. And so we spent like a week of people demanding that I be fired or have worse things happen to me and stuff like that. But my editors were they're thick-skinned and they're pros, and they just sort of said, keep your head down. And so I'm incredibly lucky. I work for a really smart publication with very smart journalists that give me a lot of freedom. And so far I haven't blown it.
All right, let's just check in one more time and make sure that Julia, see if by any chance Julia's on the call still. I think she may have had to go. All right, well, people, we're just gonna kind of call it an evening at this point. If people wanna unmute and say thank you to Matt. We're so delighted you were here. In the chat, please check out, we have a lot of virtual events at Lewis and Clark. We've got some exciting things coming up. We've got a yoga session coming up on Wednesday, May 20th. On June 18th, we're doing an intentional life planning workshop with Lee Weinstein of 81. It's going to be really great. There's a lot of happy hours coming up for different classes and different overseas programs. So if you keep your eye on our virtual events webpage, then you'll be up to date on all the things that you can join like this. And we're so very glad that you spent this time with us. And I'm sure that I speak for everybody, Matt, when I say thank you so very much for doing this for us this evening.
Let's do it again. It was really great to see everybody.
Great to see you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Here's my Grim Reaper.
Thanks.
Hi, Mayfield.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, Donna.
Thank you.
Go Pios!
Great.
Where should I send my drawings, Matt? Can I make some money from my drawings?
Yes. There you go. Well, friend me on Facebook and send me your drawings. I would love it. That would be awesome.